Clerk, call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Reverend Darwin Jordan from the First Fort Worth Presbyterian Church. Thank you very much for coming out today.
Let us pray. O Lord, as Paul said when he was speaking in Athens to the philosophers, in you we live and move and have our being. Lord, we would not be here. We would not be standing here. We would not be breathing were it not for your grace, for your power that sustains all things. We would pause to acknowledge your sovereignty and acknowledge our absolute dependence upon you, even for life itself. And Lord, as you, the very night you were betrayed, said to even your own disciples, you can do no good apart from me. We acknowledge, Lord, that you're the source of all good, that we can only do good and righteousness and justice because we're made in the image of the God who is justice and righteousness. Lord, you're the source of all of this. And so we pray, Lord, as the great sovereign King and source of all good, that you would grant righteousness and justice and wisdom in this meeting. And that, Lord, the decisions that are made will help to bring shalom, peace to this world, to this city, to this county. O Lord, bless them with joy in you and wisdom in you. For Jesus' sake we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Reverend Jordan, thank you again for coming out today, and thank you for all that your church does for our community. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, I just have one announcement. It doesn't deal with today's agenda, but it deals with next week's agenda. We're going to have a work session next week, and this one is going to be dealing with retiree health benefits. And so I believe that we'll pattern it a lot like we did the active employee benefit discussion that we had, that we'll take up a work session after closed session next Tuesday. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Also, one other thing, would remind the court that on April 23rd, we do not have Commissioners Court that day. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of April the 2nd.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. The motion passes unanimously. We have several proclamations and resolutions today. But before we get into that, I want to take an opportunity to introduce someone, Rita Wester, who is in my office. Her son just recently returned from Afghanistan, and I think at her coaxing, she was here today, and I want to introduce Wesley Dean Wester. He's with the 17th Infantry and currently is stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington. Is down here for just a little while, and will be returning, I guess, next week. For I think you indicated you had one this Friday. Or mom says has about one more year left on active duty. And Wesley, we appreciate you being here today, but we also very much appreciate your service to our country. Thank you very much.
Blushing.
I think we've embarrassed him. Now, you won't embarrass his mother, but you embarrassed him. Thank you, Rita. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
She's very, as I'm sure all parents are, she's very proud and very happy to have him home. Mm-hmm. So, again, we want to thank all those and always remember those who are serving our country so that we can be here and enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. Our first proclamation today is going to be a proclamation on Child Abuse Awareness Month. And we have Julie here this morning from the Alliance for Children. And, it's different. Julie just took over the reins of Alliance for Children. Nancy Hagan had been the executive director over there since its beginnings. And at the same time, Julie's doing great work already, and we're very excited about her and her being with the organization. Yesterday, we had an opportunity to have a presentation in TCU where they have what they call the Pinwheel. Is it Pinwheel Park or Pinwheel exhibit? And it is, as I commented yesterday, you look out there and it's really nice and pretty to see all those pinwheels out there, almost 5,600, until you realize that they represent a child who was abused in Tarrant County in 2012. And so it's sad from that standpoint, but I think the important thing is, as a community, we continue to look to that, bring attention to that, and hopefully continue to do everything we can to make that stop happening, and hopefully eventually reach a day when there'll be no pinwheels to put out. So with that, I'm going to read the resolution or the proclamation into the record, and then Julie, come on down and we'll ask you to make any comments that you'd like to make. Whereas Texas children are our future and our greatest resource, and whereas child abuse is one of our nation's most serious public health problems and threatens the safety of our community, and whereas 212 Texas children's lives were lost to child abuse in 2012, and 19 of these children's deaths being in Tarrant County, and whereas in Tarrant County 13,089 investigations were completed in 2012, and 5,598 children were confirmed as victims of child abuse and neglect. And whereas every child deserves a nurturing family and safe environment to grow into a healthy, productive member of the community, and whereas finding solutions to prevent child abuse is a community responsibility and depends on involvement of all citizens, and whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs that benefit children and their families, and whereas effective child abuse prevention, investigation, and treatment programs succeed because of partnerships among public and private agencies, schools, religious organizations, medical services, and the business community, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2013 as Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month in Tarrant County, and further that we urge all citizens to be aware of signs of child abuse and act to protect the children of Tarrant County. In witness whereof, we heretofore set our hands and cause the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 9th day of April 2013. I'll move its approval.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Looking for. Supposed to be.
Thank you, Judge Whitley. Thank you, Commissioners Court, for the opportunity to be before you today. We appreciate so deeply the commitment Tarrant County has made to this issue. We appreciate the dedication for years around this issue, and I want you to know that even though we are going through a transition, as Judge Whitley alluded to, we are even more committed to this issue and making sure that Tarrant County children are better protected. I would like, if I could, recognize a few of our partners that are with us today. This issue takes a community response to resolve, and thankfully at Alliance for Children we benefit so greatly from our partners. Today with us include Child Protective Services, the Fort Worth Police Department, the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office, the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office, the Women's Center, and hopefully I'm not missing anyone else that has joined us today, and we thank
Y'all
you.
stand up. Everybody stand up that's here with the, there you go.
It really does take a team to protect the children of Tarrant County, and it takes a team to make sure we're not only identifying them, but making sure they have the services needed to move beyond being a victim and really heal from the trauma. And we are additionally committed to preventing this. We know that child abuse is preventable, and we know that there's things that we can do better, we can do further to make adults in this community better aware of safety measures that can be put in place for children, and we're committed to that issue. So we thank you for this recognition. We thank you for once again allowing an opportunity that we as this community can recognize this epidemic issue in our community and bring some awareness to it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to
Next, we have a congratulatory resolution. Commissioner Fickus?
Yes. This was presented on Saturday, and it's to the Westlake Historical Society for a historical marker for the Possum Trot Schoolhouse, and it was presented Saturday, and I would move for approval.
Second.
Possum Trot.
Tell us about Possum
Tell us
Trot.
about
Well, Possum Trot was a school that was located in the greater Westlake area, which used to be part of the Medlin community.
Possums can't afford to
And,
live there.
and it was kind of between, it was, part of the original settlements there in northeast Tarrant and southern Denton County, Peters Colony. So this was just one of their historic schools.
Excellent.
We have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Johnson, I believe you have a proclamation.
I have a proclamation for the Donor Memory Garden. If you would read that into the record, please.
You bet. Whereas one of the most meaningful gifts that one human being can give to another is the precious gift of life, sight, and health, and whereas the need for corneas and tissues surpasses the number donated each year, and whereas Lions Club International of District E2E2 and UT Southwestern Medical Center Transplant Services provide sight and tissue services in Tarrant and surrounding counties of North Texas. And whereas over the years, Lions Club International District 2E2 and UT Southwestern Medical Center Transplant Services have facilitated the contributions from hundreds of donors, resulting in thousands of patients receiving vision-related transplants. And whereas the above-named, I'm glad we went to the above-named groups. Whereas the above-named groups recognize and do hereby acknowledge by Memory Garden in the Fort Worth Botanic Gardens in the spring event on April 13, 2012, the role of transplant medicine in donor families in community medicine, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby recognize that these efforts and those of all donor families are a vital part in the circle of care for all our citizens by making transplantation possible, and further that we hereby proclaim April 9, 2013 as the Garden of Life Spring Celebration Day throughout Tarrant County, in witness whereof we have heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 9th day of April, 2013.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Clayton Meisner of the Lions Club District 2E is here to accept this proclamation. And I was also told that Suzanne Henderson was going to be here. Is she? Huh?
She's enjoying retirement too much.
Hugh Tillman with Transplant Services, is he here? All right.
Gentlemen, y'all come on forward. He's going to get a picture with you, and then we'll let you say anything you'd like to say. Thank you for being here today. Oh, he's the camera. He's the camera.
He's the cameraman. He's the one who takes this. How you doing? Good to see you. Now, you want to get in this picture?
Good luck with that. There are a couple of words that come to mind with both y'all up there, but I'm not going to.
Chris's glasses are right here.
only get myself in trouble with my comments on this one.
Thank you, sir.
Technology, what is this?
Good job, Touche.
Thank you. I worked.
I was just informed, within the 10 years that we have been processed with the transplant service, just in Tarrant County, we have helped roughly 1,500 people with cornea transplants and that. If you have never seen the Garden of Life program that we do, within 7 years ago, there were more lions than people. Now it's turning out there's more people showing up and really begin to see the difference that we have done. We have always helped with a botanic garden. We have a spot down there with our logo and everything. We have a bench down there. And without the transplant service, that we probably couldn't help as many as we have. Without them, a lot of people would not be serviced even around the world, because they have helped people around the world and that with like 9/11. I hate to think how many skin grafts that they have sent up and everything. So we are privileged to be honored with them, and that we help them with the situations that they need. And that, so they put the word out about Lions, we put the word out about donations. So it's a good partnership. And I thank y'all very much.
Clayton, thank you for everything that Lions Club does for not only this community, but internationally as well.
Thank you, sir.
And now I'm going to call on Al Roy with the Public Health Department to come up and introduce this year's winners of our poster contest.
Your Honor, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce the winners of the 2013 Public Health Week poster contest. And if it may please the court, I'd like to invite the children up right now.
Good morning.
The theme of the 2013 Public Health Week poster contest was Public Health Saves Lives, Saves Money. You'll see that the children here are giving you all the first look.
Okay, now we can turn you all around and they can begin to see you. Well, they'll see you up there, I guess, from the.
Okay. All of Tarrant County elementary students from grades 1 through 8 were invited to enter the contest. We had over 20 schools participate this year and had about 400 and some odd entries for this year's contest, which incidentally is the 11th year that we've done this. Our first grade winner is Daniel Fraga. Let me see where Daniel hit here.
There we go.
Daniel Fraga. He comes from D. McCrae Elementary School, Fort Worth ISD. Luis Fernandez is his teacher, and he's here today.
A good Precinct 1 school.
Of course. Daniel's work features a bright, sunny day with two boys outside playing. One is jumping rope. The other one has a water bottle. And Daniel points out what good heart food is, as well as what junk food is that we should all avoid. Our second grade winner is Kimberly Guzman from Harleen Beal Elementary, again, Fort Worth ISD.
Again, another good Precinct 1 school.
And we had a great showing of Precinct 1. Miss Lindsay Daniels is her teacher. Kimberly's main message is hoops for heart, health is life. There's a basketball and a glass of water and an apple. Good refreshment for basketball players. Our third grade winner, Jason Rodriguez from Atwood McDonald Elementary. Excuse
A
me.
good Precinct 1 school.
Elizabeth
not
Pittman.
rigged.
No, sir. No, sir. Jason's art is pretty imposing. It shows a very tall boy washing his hands with soap. Our contest theme, Public Health Saves Lives, Saves Money, is featured there prominently. Fourth grade winner, Kathleen Martinez from Harleen Beal Elementary, Fort Worth ISD.
A good Precinct 1 school.
We had a strong showing there. Lindsay Daniels, also the teacher. Kathleen's work includes our poster contest theme, but takes place in a kitchen. You know, getting Yes, the refrigerator doors open, and we see all sorts of nice, good foods, along with the message, "Eat right," over there on the right side. Our 5th grade winner, Valeria Torres from D. McCrae Elementary School. Mr. Fernandez is her teacher also, and of course,
A good Precinct 1 school.
Next year, we're going to all join this precinct 1 operation.
It's a county-wide contest.
that it is. Valeria's poster is in 2 parts. To the left, we see a lot of healthy food. To the right, a little girl outside exercising. She's telling us to eat right and drink healthy and exercise 60 minutes a day. Our next winner, 6th grade, is Caitlin Hammonds from Irma Marsh Middle School, Castleberry ISD.
Can't claim that one.
Okay. Her poster shows a young girl engaged in washing her hands while eating healthy. Stay healthy is her poster's theme, along with the message, exercise and plant plants. Our 7th grade winner, Stephanie Moreno, also from Irma Marsh Middle School. Pamela Spangler is her teacher, Castleberry ISD. And Stephanie's bold message tells us to eat healthy and includes a bottle of water along with fruit. Just below the hand, we see a young, healthy girl running.
Yeah, you're moving those things.
Sorry, they're hard to see on that screen. And then our 8th grade winner, Erica Torres, also from Irma Marsh Middle School. Pamela Spangler is her teacher. Erica has a bold, timeless health message, a warning, no smoking. She also shows the danger of a possible couch fire from smoking, what secondhand smoke can do to a baby, and some of the chemicals that are in cigarettes, and that smoking can bring life to an early stop for some. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2015 Public Health. You gotta turn around. Turn on. Turn on. Show them. Hold up your artwork. Hold it.
Why don't we get the kids up here to take a
Come on up here, yeah.
Just follow her. Parents, you're allowed to take photos at this time.
Y'all come on up here and take all the
Oh,
photos you want.
Judge, I neglected to mention we have a representative from the Forest Hills City Council with us too, who's also witnessing some of their students.
Hold it right there. You hold it right there, and we'll just kind of move everybody. There we go. Kind of get everybody in. Ken, get that chair.
Good job. Awesome, thank you.
Keep smiling until you can't sing anymore.
Too high.
If you need to come closer so you can get just your child. Don't be bashful. I think the picture's covering your face, and she wants to see your face too. Is that it? Thank you. All right, congratulations. Thanks, Al. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second. A motion is second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have 3 additional items to bring to you this morning. The first one concerns the action as relates to the Governing for Results policy. This was a policy that was discussed in briefing last week, and it is up for action by the Court.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, we could go to item number 2. We're requesting that the Court accept the resignation of Judge Linda Davis, who is Justice of the Peace Precinct 2, which will be effective May 4th, 2013, and consider other action concerning the appointment of the JP replacement. Included in your court communication a letter that Judge Davis has sent to the county judge and each of you commissioners. This is I believe that she is going to retire and travel, and so she is asking that you accept her resignation. Also, we have been working with the District Attorney's Office to make sure that we have all the required qualifications as it relates to the appointment of the new JP. That's a function of the Commissioner's Court. We have an application that we've used whenever we've had to appoint other elected officials to replace vacancies in elected office. We intend to do that, and that will include also the requirements as established by statute and confirmed by the DA's office. What we are going to do, if it meets the court's approval or direction, is we're going to advertise it in the same manner that we advertise for the tax assessor collector, using a similar application. And if you approve us going in that direction, then what we will do, we will post that application on our website at the close of business today.
How long will that be posted?
It's up to the court. We were suggesting maybe 2, possibly 3 weeks at the most.
The only problem with the 2 to 3 weeks is that does not, if we were to post it, we're not going to be meeting on the 23rd. Right. So we'd be back in on the 30th.
On the 30th.
Her retirement is effective
May
3rd. May 3rd. And
May
she's
4th.
actually,
May 4th.
May 4th.
but her last day is May the 3rd.
Last day is May 4th.
What I would suggest,
her last physical day is May 3rd, but her official departure date is May 4th.
What I would suggest is that we post it for no longer than 2 weeks. That will give us a week to receive the applications. We can agendize this for the 30th for you to review, and then if you're ready to make a recommendation at that time.
That's what I was going to suggest, is that we make the deadline for turning in the applications the Friday before our April 30th meeting.
We can do that. Sure, that's fine. If that's okay with you all.
Does that give you enough time to review them?
Yes, yes. We'll review them over that weekend and get them out to you by Monday.
And I'll move that we accept her resignation and follow the procedure as outlined.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just that along with the acceptance of the recommendation, go our well wishes to Judge Davis and our thanks for her service to the people of Tarrant County.
Absolutely.
She's served as many years first as in the jury area and then as JP. So she's.
Okay, let me clarify a few things. Now,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
we're going to have our meeting on the 3rd.
Yes,
That's correct.
Yes.
You're going to have these applications due to us, and we're going to make a decision on the 3rd.
You'll be able to talk about it?
We'll be able to make it.
Yes, yes, you will.
But you're going to close the filing on the Friday before the 30th?
That's correct.
And that's going to give you enough time to go through those, send us copies of them, so we'll have a preview of them.
You know,
I think you should move that filing date. If you go 2 weeks, you would have 10 days or so to look at them instead of having basically one work day, which is going to be Monday.
If we could, that might be good
Well, I
if
think
we
it's more-
advertise for 2 weeks.
I mean, we can do that. We can certainly shorten that time, but, I mean, quite honestly, it's just a matter of, I think, unless I'm missing the point on some of this, he's going to accumulate them and give them copies to us, because I think ultimately the decision is us. From their standpoint, are there any legal requirements that they have to meet in order to be able, other than being a resident of Tarrant County and a resident, I guess, within that precinct?
GK has the written requirements, and there's really not much other than being a resident of a certain amount of time in the precinct, 18 years old, not convicted of a felony, not having been adjudicated mentally incompetent by a court. Now, this is a bonded position, so after you appoint, it will be at least to the next week until you can approve the bond, if everything just moves at lightning speed. During the time that there is a little gap there, one of two things can happen. The first is she would be a holdover, so if she's still in town and willing, she can continue to hold court until the next person is sworn in. The other is the JPs have the ability to kind of hold court for each other. So just like in any other situation where there's a brief absence by a judge, they have always done a good job of collegially taking care of each other.
So I guess the question, I mean, it goes back to if we could move that deadline forward a little bit, if it, depending upon how long we think it's going to take to copy whatever applications we get and send them to, and disperse them out to our various offices, and then how much time we think we need to look over it.
Well, I think you need more than a day. I think you're opening yourself up. We are opening ourselves up. If this is something that they're due on Friday, and we might make a recommendation on Tuesday.
Doesn't even give us time to interview if the court should decide
There's nothing that
somebody
says,
to interview.
I mean, there's nothing that says we have to do it on the 30th. It's just a matter of, how much time do you want to leave the application period open for? If we can leave it open for a week. If you want to leave it open a week, we can just leave it open a week.
Well, if you did it 2 weeks, you'd have 4 or 5 days to go through them, get them out to the different.
So you're suggesting maybe the 24th versus the 26th?
Yeah, or the 23rd. Yeah, or do a 10-day look. I don't care. Do the Friday before, the 19th. Make it 10 days.
I would suggest that we, let me make a recommendation to the court. We're going to post this afternoon, and we will close that posting at the end of business on Tuesday, the 23rd, and we will have those resumes too.
That gives you 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. And quite frankly, if we get resumes in prior to then, we'll batch those to you. That way you'll have a full set of them.
Okay. So we're going to
Change my motion to that.
to stop it on the 23rd. And that'd be at 5 p.m. on the 23rd.
That's correct. And close
I'll
of
change
business.
my second.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion at this time? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the court, on item number 3, we're requesting that the court approve an amended lease agreement between the county and the 911 district as it relates to the resource connection.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have just 2 items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and follow the personnel agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item, we're asking the court to approve changes to the table of organization to add 2 new positions to public health. The details are outlined in your court communique. We are asking, or public health is asking, that these positions be added effective April 10th. We're looking at a fiscal impact of a little bit more than $107,000 to the public health fund.
Have we discussed this at all with JPS?
With JPS?
Since they're the ones that cover their budget?
Yes, we've already spoke. These positions have been funded for for this year. Remember, we talked, when we did the West Nile virus presentation, we laid out two budgets for you, one for the remainder of this fiscal year and one for next year. And what we're doing on this year's budget is that the personnel will be taken from monies that are currently in the public health budget. We believe we found savings to do that. I've called Mr. Early and told him to expect next year that we are going to add money in for West Nile virus staffing.
So when you say you call him and ask, are we paying that out of the county, or are you telling them they're going to pay it out of JPS?
That we, in our budget for next year, not this year, but for next year, that we are going to include the West Nile virus personnel.
In our budget from the county,
From the
or in
county
their
to-
budget from the JPS?
JPS.
And again, as I've said many years, I think JPS needs, and their board, need to be a little bit more active in that process as opposed to us picking up. It's kind of like an unfunded mandate, and we scream and holler about unfunded mandates coming down to us from the state. And I would feel exactly, and have heard from some of my board members, the exact same feeling about us just, basically saying, here you are.
Well, our health department and JPS needs to have meetings and discuss these things. And then they need to let their board know and let us know.
I agree. And I just don't know that that's happened.
First of all, I did speak to the executive director about this. Second of all, we have now offered 2 times this current fiscal year to come before the JPS board and present an update on our current budget, and also try to schedule with them where we can present next year's budget, proposed budget, to them. And we're still waiting for a response.
Well, GK, I don't know that you ought to be doing that to the board as much as working with the staff over there and presenting a budget through, just as JPS's staff folks would do it. I mean, what would you feel like if somebody came to the court without going through you and said, I want to present to you, the court, a budget item. I don't want to go through Debbie. I don't want to go through you. I just want a time to come and present to the Commissioner's Court this item.
Judge, we have been working with the staff. Last year, on our budget presentation to them, we followed their guidelines and their direction on how they wanted to see our budget.
So then, your statement about having met with, or having requested to meet to the board, why would that have even been an issue if you'd have been going through and meeting with the staff and it had been a joint suggestion? Has the staff person recommended this to the board, to their board?
Not for next year yet. They haven't submitted their budgets.
So this is where I'm confused, is it sounds to me like you're asking to present to the board, and this is not a discussion that jointly JPS staff and is taking to their board.
I probably was not as clear as I needed to be. We have requested from JPS staff, their chief financial officer, the ability to address their board at their convenience. JPS and the county since last October have been working jointly to see if there are efficiencies that we can accomplish. I think there are 2 areas that we have. Those meetings that initiated that were both with Commissioner Brooks and Commissioner Johnson at the time. I believe that we are working with JPS staff, and of course we're not going to go to the JPS board until the staff says that they think it's time to do that. We would never go around their staff.
I think we need to do a better job of working with their staff then, because I don't think that's the sense that I've gotten from any of my board members, and I've gotten the feeling that it is more of a, here's an unfunded mandate, you're going to need to put this in your budget.
I would suggest that when Mr. Early comes to make his next month's presentation, that we have this discussion with Mr. Early to make sure.
Well, I'm going to have it with him before then, because I don't necessarily also agree with having that in front of, just we're going to bring him up here and see if we can't embarrass him.
Do we need to table this till a later date?
I would suggest that we do.
We need to
Judge,
do that.
We would never
I would make
intentionally
that
try to
motion.
embarrass.
Well, then that's why we don't need to be bringing it to him when he comes up here. We need to have the conversation and figure it out. But the comment that you're trying to get before his board, there should not be if it's working through the staff and you're not able to get to the board, then there's either a problem or something else is going on, and we're going directly to the board.
We are working with the staff. We're working with their staff.
Let me comment here. I have been sitting on the sideline observing and talking to several board members at JPS. And I think there is a strategic, a difference in the strategic point of view. Some members of the JPS board don't feel that they should be in the business of public health, and certain members don't feel like they should be absorbing the cost of Tarrant County Public Health personnel. Now, they're not going to say that openly for obvious reason. That's my observation. And I think to really put this to bed once and for all, I think members of this court, representative of this court, maybe Judge and Commissioner Brooks or Commissioner Johnson, representing Tarrant County, and sit down and have a direct conversation with JPS and work it out. Because I don't think this is something at the staff level it can be dealt with because of various reasons, mostly political. I mean, that's my assessment. I could be wrong, but I think it needs to be dealt at that level once and for all.
Well, maybe there's a possibility that some of the board members you've talked about that are not believing that they should pay for health, we're actually paying for it. We gave JPS the funds to fund the health department back when we made this transfer. So they have the tax rate, it built into their tax rate, the health department's budget. So maybe somebody needs to sit down with them and explain how this system
Exactly.
works.
Yes, sir. They have new members. Like, I didn't even know that until the most recent discussion. Okay? So there are historical facts that took place years ago that certain new members of this court and of the JPS board are not informed. So as a result, we have some of these lingering issues, and I think we can work it out if we just sit down and just have a face-to-face discussion and kind of solve it once and for all.
I think that the members are aware of that, because I think you guys had a meeting with them here 6-8 months ago.
Well, apparently some of them
And
are.
I think the amount of money we're talking for next year is far surpasses that.
I don't know where, I mean, I don't know what you're right. We certainly gave that tax rate to them at the time. What I don't know is how that relates to what that tax rate raises now in comparison to what the budget is.
We just went through this about a month ago, and how much over the amount that we gave them, I mean, how much under spending are we doing in the health department right now?
Marshall, what is the amount of money that's your budget to JPS? How much is it?
There's actually more tax money coming in.
This year it's $9.7 million. We had allocated 1 penny into their tax rate, which generates about $12.6 million.
But I think once they got that, I think they actually ended up lowering the tax rate. Yeah, they did.
They did a couple years ago.
I think they lowered the tax rate the same year we gave them the penny. I think they turned around and lowered the tax rate some.
Well, guess I don't recall that.
No, we lowered it back when we lowered back in 7 or 8. We lowered ours and we lowered and theirs was.
Well, we sent them the money. The money was sent over as a part of the whole tobacco settlement deal. And the reason it was sent over is because the whole indigent defense calculation of how to, not indigent defense, indigent health care, the money that came in off the tobacco settlement, you put into a pool, and the way it was divided was based upon what your contribution toward indigent health care was. And in the major places where you had a hospital district, that calculation is based upon what your tax rate raises. Doesn't have anything to do with the amount of care you give, doesn't have anything to do with the amount of uncompensated care you give. It only had to do with what your tax revenue was in that hospital district. In all the other counties, it was supposed to be the 8% or whatever they spent. So what we did at that point in time is we looked at everything that we might have been financing in our regular budget, and we moved that over into the hospital district along with the tax rate associated with that in order to be able to maximize the amount of money we received from the tobacco settlement money each year.
But the amount we gave them out of the tax rate was more than the budget that we requested from the health department.
And again, I think the board that year recognized that and reduced their tax rate.
Can we go back and research court orders, historical documents to build a case? And
What are we wanting to build a case on? I mean, what are we after here?
yes, sir. My point is there are various facts that came up through this discussion. And I think we need to make a decision based upon what was really the fact, because apparently what I have been hearing so far is that we passed a certain tax rate to the JPS. Okay, was that documented?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
it's documented.
And then they also lowered their tax rate according to the judge.
Well, I don't know about
Do
that.
we, now,
I don't recall
now,
that.
is that a fact or is that,
We'll need to go back and research that, but I can remember very clearly how this happened. The hospital district, I'm not talking about the current administration nor the current board. Judge Willie is correct as it relates to the tobacco settlement, where we wanted more expenditures to be in there. The hospital district had carried a significant amount of extra cash simply because of the way that they budgeted. And when they came to us and talked about tax rates, what happened was that this court at that time, was positioned to actually lower the tax rate of the hospital district because of the excess cash that they had. And rather than doing that, we maintained the tax rate at a level state and indicated and directed them to that 1 penny of that tax rate would be used to fund public health. And Mr. Cicero was the CEO at the time, and that discussion was held here in this courtroom.
Mr. Manias, I understand that you don't want to conduct research or whatever because you don't think it's necessary.
No, I didn't
Now,
say that at all.
I'm asking you to do me a favor because I cannot make decisions relating to public health without facts. And the other court members have been here. I haven't. I'm a new court member, and I need to be able to make decisions based on documents. Okay, so if you can help me with that, it will make my life a whole lot easier.
Commissioner Wynn, I do not think that I was not going to do research for you, because if you directed me to do that, I'm going to do that.
But you understand my point of view, because right now, I'm hearing two different sides right now, and I don't know which one is accurate, which one is not. So, the best way for me to go about it is to go back to historical documents, read it myself, and then come to a conclusion for myself.
And I guess where I'm coming down on the thing is that from a standpoint of we've given public health over to JPS, at least my perception, if we're going to give them the budget, then they ought to be able to manage it. And I believe that I have board members that have expressed to me that if they're going to have it, they'd like to be able to manage it and not simply get a budget and say, here's the budget, pass it. And last year, they kind of put their back up and didn't pass it, and some of us, some of y'all went over and visited and said, y'all need to do this, and here's the reason you need to do it. But if we're going to just do the public health, then we're going to take it back from them and do it. But if we're going to let them do it, if we're going to put it under their budget, then it ought to be under their budget, and it ought to be more of we systematically work together and we produce a budget that goes to the board at that point in time. But there shouldn't be a reason for you to be going to their board and presenting something as a part of a budget that's separate from the total overall budget of JPS.
Let me weigh in here with 2 or 3 things. First of all, staff at JPS should not be determining what the policy of this court is regarding the funding of public health. That is a board-to-court issue, not a staff-to-staff issue. Secondly, there's not a soul at JPS who was elected to do a darn thing. The electeds are sitting at this table, and we decide what the budget of JPS is. We set the tax rate, and we go forward from there. And thirdly, unraveling this penny that we gave them on their tax rate to bring public health back into our house is going to cause us to have to raise our taxes that penny. And it's a more complicated process than I think any of y'all want to get into, to unravel that penny and transfer public health back over here.
All I'm saying is this discussion has been taking place several times already, dated back at least a year ago. And every time this issue comes up, we would have a similar discussion. I think what Commissioner Brooks said, this is an issue that is from court to board. And I think we need to have that discussion at the highest leadership level and come up with a strategy to deal with it once and for all.
Let's have a
And
joint
we've
meeting.
had those discussions. We've had those discussions with the executive committee of the board. We haven't had it with the entire board, but at least their board officers have been on the same page with us in terms of funding public health.
Yeah, Roy and I had a meeting with them one night to discuss this.
And we've had meetings since then.
Yeah.
I guess, again, some of the folks I've heard for are current officers right now, and that ain't been, and I believe they feel like they don't have the ability to manage that they should. And yes, we are the elected body, but we appoint a board, and that board we expect to act. And that board, I believe, at least some of the folks who have talked with me, have indicated that if you're not going to give us the ability to really work on the budget, then take it back from us.
But that's not their decision. That's our decision.
I understand that, but again, if I'm going to ask somebody to serve on a board, I'm not going to be telling them how to make their decisions. I would like for us to table this at this point in
Feel
time.
like we've made our decision, they need to unscramble it. Do we have a motion on the floor
I made a motion to table this item.
before that?
No. I'll second the motion to table. Please vote. Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am so happy to be here today. We're asking for approval for the DY1 Texas Medicaid waiver IGT transfer payment. And this is, right now we have 8 projects that are on the table. They're still in review, but this is for the first year that we've already completed. It was a planning year, and this is our payment for that.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn, you have an interlocal agreement.
Yes, sir. I move for the approval of item 8L1A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have three items we bring to you this morning. The first one concerns our workers' comp return to work program. Mr. Worthy is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, as you know, in February, we rolled out our workers' comp program that developed a Riverview provider group, the panel of physicians that we do require our employees to utilize if they have an on-the-job injury or illness, and we did that on February the 15th. Now, as a follow-up for that, we now want to address our return to work policy and consider some changes to our policy related to return to work. So providing temporary medical assignments for employee for restricted duty helps reduce cost and unnecessary lost time. So even if an employee is injured and possibly can return to work in some sort of restricted capacity, they could probably still do productive and useful work for us. Studies have shown that employees that miss 6 months or more of an on-the-job injury are 50% less likely to ever return to work any place, not just here, so that they would not ever be a productive individual in a workplace. So what we want to propose is one of two options for you to consider. We want to, under option 1, consider developing a policy where employees that have received a restricted release, and we would obviously follow what their doctor's orders are. We are going to look at what restrictions are provided. We would look at those restrictions and ask the home department to consider placing those employees in what we are calling a temporary medical assignment. Those are not regular positions. They are just a temporary medical assignment whereby you have find duties that that individual can perform that meet the restrictions provided by their physician. If that department cannot find a place for that employee, what we would like to do is develop a pool whereby we would have other departments, the non-home department, that would have duties that could be performed by these individuals with restrictions. For example, if someone has a very physical job and they have sprained their ankle and they need to be able to sit with their foot elevated, there are plenty of duties around the county, we believe, that could be performed by somebody that is sitting with their foot propped up, answering phones, shredding documents, filing, sorting documents. There's a variety of things that we believe that those individuals could do. And so what we would like to be able to do is coordinate the efforts of various departments and find places for these individuals that have received restricted duty releases. Now, we have developed a policy which we have provided to you. It is a draft policy. We have worked, initially we worked with the Sheriff's Department on this policy, with them being our largest department and our department that we have the most injuries in. So we've worked with them. We certainly intend to reach out to the other departments as we move forward with this, should the court be interested in this. So we have provided you our draft policy. We'll develop procedures later if it's determined that this is the method we want to use. And of course, we believe in HR that the option 1 is the best option, where we would work with the departments to develop a pool. Now, the challenge to that is we do not currently have the resources to do that. We currently have one workers' comp individual That position was created in the early 1990s when the county had about 1,700 employees. We currently have about 4,000 employees now, a little over 4,000. We have done some surveys with other local counties, and they do appear to have more staff for similar numbers of employees to handle workers' comp. So that's obviously a consideration to be given under option 1. Option 2 would be to stay with status quo, to continue to try to work with our departments to encourage them to take those individuals that have had restricted duty releases and find temporary medical assignments. We do find that challenging. A lot of departments don't have work that is productive and useful, space, what have you, for those individuals to be assigned to do other duties. And so we have found it a challenge. Now, one of our goals is we're working with our workers' comp vendor to develop some reports to show you all the cost of not bringing people back to work when we could. We are paying those individuals their workers' comp income supplements while they're off work, and not when in fact they could be performing some duties. And if they could come back to work, we would not be paying those supplemental payments to those employees. So we believe that there would be some cost savings, and we want you to consider this, and certainly happy to answer any questions I can for you. And I have Charlotte Swint here, our workers' comp coordinator, so if I can't answer questions for you, then I think she will be able to, I hope.
Questions? Comments or thoughts?
I think it's a good idea if we can put them to work, if we have a place to put them.
If we do something like this, I would prefer that we do it as a pilot program to see whether or not we can make it work.
The only difference between option 1 and option 2, option 1 essentially say it would encourage the department to identify suitable work, and option 2 is the same.
Well, I think with option 1, what we would do is, obviously, the first choice would be for the home department to find a place for that individual. But in option 1, if that home department doesn't have a place for them, that department would, in our kind of idea, that department would contact HR and say, I have an employee that needs to sit with their foot propped up. HR would have already identified work in various departments where we could place those individuals. And we would act as an agent, I guess is a good word, I don't know, to then say, okay, well, HR has a spot where that person can come and sit and shred confidential documents, or elections has a position where somebody could sit and do some data entry. I'm not talk to elections, but let's just say that for an example, that somebody could sit at a computer with their foot propped up and do some data entry. And so we would coordinate those efforts between the home department and a placement department. In option 2, basically we stay exactly the same as we are today. We just would like you to find a place for them. Some departments do not have temporary medical assignments, and therefore those employees are able to stay off work and not return to work because that department doesn't have the ability to bring them in.
In option 1, do the department heads have the authority to say no? For example, this job required certain security clearance or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. Well, what we intend to do, should the court take an interest in this, is we will begin to reach out to the other departments and say to them, do you have duties, responsibilities that could be performed by somebody from another department? Obviously, it would be duties that would not take a long learning curve, right? And do you have places where we could temporarily bring people in and out? We would not do it on a daily basis. We've kind of talked about that it would be no shorter than a 2-week period of time that we would make that temporary medical assignment. We don't want to do it for a day. That would be probably very disruptive to a department. But if a department had duties that could be performed, in kind of 2-week stints, then we would contact that non-home department and say, we now have somebody. Somewhat like a temporary agency might work in that we would keep a pool. Now, obviously, there's going to be situations where we can't accommodate somebody's restrictions. Their restrictions may be such that, you know, they can't sit for more than 2 hours, they can't stand for more than 2 hours. Their restrictions may be such that we can't accommodate them in a temporary medical assignment. But most of the restrictions that we see, we believe we could accommodate and find temporary medical assignments for them.
So essentially what you're saying is under option 1, the department head would still have the authority to say no. Exactly. They still have it.
If that's the way the policy reads, yes, it is written, you know, that the departments could continue not to. Now, are you saying, and let me make sure I understand your question before I completely answer. Are you saying the home department could say, no, I don't want to let my employee be assigned to another?
I'm talking about the other department.
Okay, the other, absolutely. We are not going to force an employee on a department that does not want them. But if a department does have the ability to take someone in to do those types of duties, we certainly want to encourage that.
And who would be responsible for supervising that employee?
We
Home department or?
No, the home department would still pay that employee and be responsible for that employee, but that department that they're placed in would be responsible for them day to day. Now, obviously, if there's problems and that employee isn't performing and is, you know, then that would be dealt with on an individual case-by-case basis.
So I guess to that end, the department who takes this employee on would, when it came around for annual performance review or anything along that lines, they would be a part of the review process?
They certainly could do that. Now, these are 90-day assignments, no more than 180. So we're not talking about somebody staying in a temporary medical assignment for an extended period of time.
Well, but we've got people who are on workers' comp for years.
In non-sheriff's department workers' comp individuals, after 180 days, they are terminated.
But
now,
as you said, our largest department is the sheriff. We have workers' comp people for years.
yes, in the sheriff's department, that has been true. We do believe that our new Riverview Provider Group and our 504 program is going to help us with that. We believe that because we have chosen the cream of the crop doctors to be in our panel, that our employees will will be returned to work sooner.
Say that carefully.
They'll be returned to work sooner.
Again, realizing that some of the folks who are on this may not be as excited about this reduced or this light duty work or whatever it may be as possible. I think it is very critical that the individual department, or whether it be the supervisor, the department head, or the elected official, have the hammer of wielding that there will be a review process, that, you know, just because you're with one department doesn't mean that another department that you're working for is not going to have an opportunity to review your.
Correct. And the workers' comp law does have a provision for making a bona fide offer to an individual to accommodate those restrictions. So we would, you know, employees would sign that they are accepting this offer for a temporary medical assignment, and we would make it clear to them that they would have the same responsibilities to perform up to par as they would in their regular position.
Okay.
What instructions are you going to give to this blue ribbon panel of physicians? Is their charge to get these people back to work as quickly as possible?
No, sir.
Or is their charge to fully treat the medical condition of
Absolutely.
this employee?
It is to treat the full medical condition. We want them to return them to work when it is medically prudent to do so. We absolutely do not dictate to a physician what is medically prudent. We don't have that expertise. But we do have authorizations they work within so that we stay on top of the types of treatment that those individuals are getting. And we know what is considered standard treatment for most types of injuries. Obviously, sometimes there are extenuating circumstances with comorbidity issues and that kind of things that might take somebody longer to heal than somebody that didn't have those issues. But because Obviously, workers' comp has been in place for a very long time. They know kind of standards of treatment, and so the physicians are provided that. But we absolutely do not dictate to a medical professional when it is medically prudent for somebody to return to work.
Who has picked this panel?
We worked with...
And is there any diversity in the panel?
Yes, there is. And we have worked with a variety of professionals to develop those. We worked with our JI, is our company that we work with for workers' comp. We looked at the physicians we've worked with in the past. We also used some expertise from medical case managers and their expertise in the medical field of working with individuals that have workers' comp injuries. And, of course, we looked at our experience with various physicians and their success rates with not necessarily getting somebody back to work, but we don't want somebody to have a second surgery because the first surgery wasn't done correctly. Those kinds of issues, we've looked at those. And so we've identified those physicians. For the most part, there are physicians we've been using already. And there is a nomination process if an employee or an individual wants to nominate a physician to be in the panel. The panel is not a closed panel.
If we were doing a pilot-type project, how much time do you think is necessary to be able to truly evaluate the results of the program?
Well, I don't know. We hadn't really talked about that. I guess our biggest challenge with that would be the resources to manage the program.
Well, and that's why I asked, because
Yeah.
part of that may be that we authorize
A temporary position.
A temporary position for 2 to 3.
Probably 6 months to get it.
I was thinking more like a year or 2 years.
Oh, okay. Certainly, yeah, we could, I would take that, but I was trying to be very conservative, but yes. And we're anticipating that it will take us some time to meet with all the departments and build the plan and the procedure, and that this new position, should the court seem to be agreeable, would be asked for in the fiscal year that's coming up in October of 2013 for fiscal year 2014.
I would think it would take at least a year to get it set up and get the departments on board.
And that's why I was thinking 2, because it's set up for 1 year and then another year to really evaluate how the results are going from that standpoint.
Yeah, and of course, if we were going to do it in that manner, we'd probably create a project position, which is not a regular full-time position, and we could address
Do any of
that.
y'all have a problem with them going back and coming in with a more formal program that would be, say, a 24-month pilot type project? Go forth and pilot.
Thank you.
Come on down, Jack.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
There's been some discussion in the last several weeks concerning the problem that exists with vendors not signing their addendums or their bid documents. Commissioner Wynn asked that we go back and do some research, which we did. We brought to the court since October 1, 2012, 46 bid documents for either approval or rejection. In those 46 bids were included 237 responses. Of those responses, 9 were recommended for rejection for lack of bid signature, and 5 for lack of the addendum signature. Of the 14 rejections, only 5 of those possibly could have been considered for award, assuming that they met specifications. We also put together a table. The question also came from Commissioner Wynn as to which vendors were new or old vendors. On that table, only 4 of those that we brought to the court recommending rejection were new vendors. The rest were incumbent vendors that had done business with the county for quite some time. The other thing that I did personally, I took a major poll via telephone with all the major counties, that being Bexar, Collin, Dallas, Denton, El Paso, Harris, and Travis. Of those 7 counties, both Dallas County and Travis County allow the vendors for either not signing the bid document or the addendum to come back in within 24 hours and sign that document. The other thing that we provided for in your packet is a copy of the old proposal signature form. What we've done the last several weeks is redo that. You'll see this new proposal form, which uses .28 Arial font in bold letters with signature and an X. That's gone from a one-page form to about a two-page form. We did the same thing on the certificate of eligibility, which is the debarment form that's required by law for us to include in the bid document. Again, a .28 Arial font, signature space, and an X. The next thing that we did, heard all within the last few months that the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport was having a similar problem. We propose also to put this form after the signature page, a stop sign with the statement, did you sign your bid and or your addendum? If not, your bid would be rejected. We had a pre-bid conference for heavy equipment last week, of which 8 long-term vendors selling to the county were present. I made the statement before that we talk about this on a daily basis. The buyer, senior buyer, was Tim Jones. He was going into the dissertation again about the signature. Simultaneously, all 8 vendors chimed in and said, sign your bid. So they are understanding what we're requiring for them to do. Our recommendation this morning would be to continue bringing back to Commissioners Court a recommendation of rejection for either failure to sign the bid or the addendum.
Anybody else have any other questions at this point in time?
Is that the current policy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Members of the court, we have one final item. That is an update on the legislative issues. You should have a memorandum from Mr. Mendez in your packet. We'll attempt to answer any questions that you may have as it relates to that memorandum.
Any questions?
Only question I have is how many more days are they going to be down there butchering us up?
We're, I don't know exactly. Is it May 12th when they sign it on?
I'll figure it out.
May 12th sounds early.
Okay. We'll get that answer.
Usually around Memorial Day.
We'll get that answer for you.
I'll get my own answer. You don't have to research it for me.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
We have an audience participation. William Shane Nolan, come on forward, and if you would please state your name and your address and the matter you're wishing to discuss with the court.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is William Shane Nolan. I live at 2301 Stockbridge Court, Pantego, Texas, in Tarrant County, Precinct 2. I am an attorney in the area. My office is on Park Row, and I've worked with Linda Davis. I worked in her court for several years now. I did want to publicly express my gratitude to her and to the commissioners for appointing her for so long in that position. I also making clear that I do intend to run in the next general election for that position, and I did want to introduce myself to the commissioners today. So
okay.
I have copies of my resume I will leave with the court secretary, and if there are any questions, then I'm open to those.
And GK, I'm assuming, are we, as we did with the tax assessor collector, we indicated we were going to do that. Do we have application that we're asking folks to fill out in addition to their resume?
We do have an application that we are going to ask them to fill out. That application will be ready by close of business today.
So then I would suggest that you go ahead and get the application from Mr. Manius, and then go ahead and fill that out and provide the resume
Perfect.
with that. Thank you very much for coming out.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Anything else at this time? Then we'll recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from our closed meeting and there being no business to conduct at this time, we are adjourned.